Hey guys, once again, welcome back. Uh, okay, I think we're live. Okay, so today again we'll be continuing our series. Once again, welcome back to the goanchesstrio. This is Anurag, and we'll be continuing the middle game series that we've been doing. And today is day 11. So today, what we'll be doing is, yeah, glad to see you guys in the chat once again. So we'll be continuing with what we have been doing thus far, and we'll do now. What we'll do is we'll look at different structures and maybe some things that have come from the opening, like different openings, etc. So we'll try to see how to play in some of the positions, not all today, but some of them at least. We can have a look at them. So like here you can see there's an imbalance again. This is a 3 versus 2. So you can try to picture what you should do in such positions, what should be the goal, which is the better, like in the end game generally whichever side has this majority, right? Generally, like if you have the majority, then the minority always, like, you can try to push up on faster exchange, and then the king can, like, try to go towards the majority. For example, like, let's just say as an example, black's king is a little far away. Okay, um this is just an example, guys. This is a mistake. Actually, I should bring my king also closer. And king e2, king here, and let's say the king comes closer. Whenever, I'm just giving an example, whenever the pawns get exchanged, like let's say black is a little bit too passively playing here, and he allows me to somehow enter with my king inside. Now what I can do is I can exchange my pawns here, and then I can sacrifice this pawn. I can ignore my pawns here and take my king all the way to the other side, capturing all the majority. Again, this idea will not always work in each and every instance, but it's a possible plan in the end game, I'm saying. But we will be looking at also the middle game. And hello, Ved, good to see you here. uh, we'll try to see what exactly happens from even the middle game positions. So that this is one thing that you should be aware of. Like, okay, the end game may not be the safest option. If you have the majority, you should try to utilize it more in the middle game, etc. We'll try to see different openings, maybe Ruy Lopez, Carlsbad structure, etc. We'll try to see what we can look at. And like, it's a, like, if I look at the next position also, it's the same, just reverse. Also, one more thing, suppose you're having this thing, like if you're having this structure in the end game especially, white's king, let's say, should be closer to this side of the board, and he should not immediately go and boldly just start pushing his pawns. He should see that whatever entry points are, like suppose I play something like f4 here as a mistake, it can allow f5 fixing, and that is not a good idea. So you should also push your pawns correctly, and whenever you're pushing also, like, it should not create too many holes. One more example I'll just show you from endgame perspective. Like, let's say c5 a3, king d7, and here now, or let's say I play b5. Now here you should not be playing a move like b4. That's a big mistake, because you just allowed a pass pawn here, and now you cannot really do anything to get rid of it. For example, let's say king c2. Somehow my mouse is a little bit shaky. Into b5, you cannot do anything here because the king cannot go outside now. But imagine the same position would have been like this, then you could, if he tries to, you could, like, still keep it. Sorry, you could still keep it here. He still doesn't have a way to progress. And similarly, black also should be very cautious as to what he pushes in certain positions. For example, if he does this, white can sometimes try to break through and create a hole on c4. Now this is all endgame stuff, but still you should be aware of in which pawn structures what to do. Now this also allows a tactical resource for black too, by the way. The same thing which I just showed you, he can try to be smart and try to create the same thing. So although he has given up a pawn, you cannot really take your king outside anywhere because of this pass pawn, and your king passively stuck here can be sometimes a problem. So either it will end in a draw, or white, most likely it'll end in a draw, but otherwise white can also sometimes lose this position from here on. But okay, let's start with looking at it from the middle game perspective, from the games. Okay, we'll just play through from the start. Yes, of course, like more of those things we will do in the end game, the positions that I just showed you, but I was just showing the structures that could be relevant to what we are going to see next in these positions or in these games. g3 b5. Okay, So basically, he's trying to play the Catalan. This is the Catalan opening, and c4 normally is played here, which enters mainline theory. But white plays this slow Catalan with bishop g2, and what he tries to do is he tries to play c4 later. If he's trying to do that, he can play c4 later. Maybe he had other ideas, knight e5. Maybe he had some other ideas also. But what we are interested in looking at what black did, immediately stopping c4. So now after castle, knight d7, bishop g5, bishop e7, knight bd2. Black immediately played the move c5. Now here itself, white has a choice to choose which structure he wants to go for, how he will continue immediately right away. So let's say white is playing more dynamically, wants to do something quickly, then the most obvious choice will be to try to look for some openings. And the openings cannot be played with c4 because we are two pawns supporting the d4 c4 square. So the thing that you can do is either break open with something like a4, creating an imbalance, or you can snap the pawn on c5, d into c5, like you did in the game. But let's say you're going to play a symmetrical structure. This is why, knowing the structures is an important or beneficial thing, because when I play c3, I'm playing a more of a symmetrical structure. So there are different ideas completely in that structure. Hello, RK. Good to see you in the chat. There's a completely different idea and approach in those structures. Maybe black might keep it like this and just go castle, later play c4, b4, or he might take c into d4 and like play a very symmetrical, equal position here. So it depends on white also here what structure he wants to play. And we are going to now right now see d into c5. Not wrong, nothing that c3 is not correct also, but there are different ideas and different structures. So in this position itself, white is given a choice what to do. He plays d into c5 and continues. Knight into c5, and he plays knight d4, attacking this. So he has chosen this idea because if black plays a6 in this position, coolly defending it, what would he do as white here in this position? Hello, Nagesh. You would play a4, is it? No, see, he has played knight d4 to attack here, as well as like sometimes the c6 square. He has also had another idea. So a4 is aggressive, but it's not clear. Knight into a4, you're sacrificing a pawn, and then you're looking for c4. I don't know, but it may not work very well. So knight c6, and you can take away the bishop. And the moment you take away the bishop, you get some plans going very immediately for you. For example, queen c7, knight into e7, queen into e7. What exactly will you do here in this position now? What will you try to do? We learned so much, like in the past. Like, what should you try to do in this position? So, what idea should you look for? There are numerous ways again that you can play in this. A4 is not the way here. With again, a4 will lead to knight into a4 coming here. Again, don't want to sacrifice pawn unnecessarily. Uh, So basically, you can use this simple principle. You have two bishops. You can try to open up the position. Not that it always is needed, or not that always like opening is the best thing to do, but you should keep that in mind that you would not really benefit too much from close positions. So the main things that you should look for are c4, like somebody said, RK said c4 or e4, both moves. Try to open up the position and try to create possibilities, and then you should think of which move is better. That is, like, you have to figure the next step out. Like, for example, here you're trying to utilize the pins. Sorry, you're using the pin, and if knight into e4, knight bishop into e4, you're getting some play going. Now one thing to keep in mind is, if you're going to go for like going to change it into this structure and try to open up, preferably you should see that you don't allow the exchanges of the bishop without really helping your position. For example, bishop b7, you have some weak squares here. Immediately, that would not be generally a good idea. Here it's a different story because we see that the king is right here, and I think people know what to do here. If you don't have two bishops, then you should definitely try to create more weaknesses in this position. And since the king is on e8, I'm sure people know what to do here in this position, right? What would you do here in this position? Knight f3, knight e5. Okay, we'll come back to that. That is also possible. Bishop b7 and queen d6 is away to try to keep that king in the center. There are many ways you can continue. Bishop e7 and queen d6 is trying to keep the queen in the center. If he tries too much, try hard to exchange, then we simply can play queen c6 and we are winning the rook and the game probably. But this is one way. The other way is you can try to create pawn structure changes by not sacrificing, sorry, by exchanging a bishop for the knight. But you're spoiling his pawn structure because the queen is overloaded, right? He's defending here, so he cannot capture with the queen. And you're allowing some exchanges, and then you can even take, and then the king is in the center. The point for black is that he is unsafe on both sides of the board. He's unsafe here also because his pawn structure is open. He's unsafe here also because he's already played b5 6, so you're not too far away from opening up the position straight away with a4 or c4. So both sides are unsafe. The other things that you can try better are queen f3 or something. You can always try queen f3 and then let's say castle. But I think it's safe to say that bishop b7 is the better move. And here, I think if you choose between the two moves, the king is definitely unsafe on the center. But if you choose between castling queen side and king side, I think this side is the safer side. This side looks horrible because the king is just not having any cover. Here, at least he has some pawns. So one smart move is a move like queen g4, cutting off that castling chance, initiating some threats, and also planning to get your rooks into the game. But it is already better. So the exchanging of the bishops, like opening up the lines, was helpful because maybe bishop b7 doesn't really look good, and if he plays rook a7 or so, we can try to utilize our resources, like tactical resources, if it's possible with bishop c6. Actually, bishop c6 is not having any tactical resource because if you play something like queen d4, he is coming with the defense. But then you can try maybe bishop. No, what you can do is you can do this bishop c6 move for a reason actually. Just spoil his bishop on d7 and then come back all the way to g2. Why I did this? Because I know that this bishop should be really useful in the later stages, and I don't want to allow the exchanges. For example, if I just retreat like this, maybe that bishop can easily trade me off on g2. In the previous position, I was trying to spoil his structure, but here, since the rook is protecting, he can keep keep his bishop. He can keep capture with the queen and doesn't need to spoil his structure too much. But okay, you got the plan. You know what to do. You can try to open up. Somebody said knight f3, knight e5. I think, see, that idea, okay, you don't have a pawn on d4. That idea would be very good if you had a pawn on d4 and you were doing this. No, nothing wrong in the, like, it's kind of a position where you don't need to do something quickly and immediately. Even this move knight b3 is a pretty decent move here because you're threatening bishop f6 and knight into c5, which tries to spoil the structure. And if you play knight b3, all you're trying to do is activate your pieces without, like, trying to develop them to d1 like you normally would do. You're trying to get that going. That would also be another idea. Now, the basic things, like your bishops are needing some openings. You still have some openings and open good squares. For example, after this, let's say a bishop can maneuver to some squares like this. A rook is on the open file. You can think of c4 to open up. So you still have those possibilities. The point is you should not lock down the position. You can take it slowly also. You can take it aggressively also, or even this move c4. Using some tactical resources to get some play is also a good idea in this position. Basically, your bishops are going to count soon because the position is pretty open here. So clearly he cannot do that. He played bishop d7, and now we see the biggest, like one simple small change is that he cannot really immediately exchange the bishops on b7 or keep that on b7 in this position. White played c3. He did not go for e4 or anything. Not in any rush. c3 castle, and here he was trying to play e4 in this position to get something going very quickly here. Now preferably, maybe you don't need to do this immediately actually, but you can play c3 and play this. But the other idea that you can follow, let's say I just shown you, what else could you have done in this position other than white playing c3 and like what he did, I will show you in the game. But what else could you have done in this position? We are soon heading into the position where we'll be getting that 3 versus 2, and then we'll see those plans. But right now, besides playing c3, what else can anybody tell me what else they would do in this? Anybody? Any plans? B3 to C4. Okay, B3 and C4. Okay. Yeah, okay, that is also possible. That is trying to utilize the bishops to your benefit. What if I play something like B4 and try to fix the position though? Now that's a bad change in structure, okay? Like generally you don't want to get your pawns fixed like this. Now it's a backward pawn. We have done this in the first or second day. Like c2, that is a weakness. And if you cannot get rid of this pawns, for example with a3, and he's able to hold still with a5, you're not having any tactics on the a file and you're not able to get rid of his pawn on b4, then that's not a good situation to be in, because what happens is the c2 pawn is backward, and it's not very easy to even get c3, and somehow maybe black gets lucky and gets his knight there. That's a beautiful outpost. So b3 idea is good, you're trying to get c4, but not the best way to do it. Knight b3 would be another way to play out, and also, like, determining which knight. Like, let's say here this knight and this knight, there are two knights coming to b3. Can anybody tell me which knight is the better knight? The moment you figure out what black can do, you will immediately realize which knight would be, sorry, which knight would be better here coming to b3, this knight or this knight. So just understanding some small thing, then we'll move on to the c3 move. I'd explain this, like, when, of course, both knights are on the D knight, though. That's a nice joke. You have to mention the ranks. The knight d4 b3. Yes, that is a better knight to come to b3, because this knight is coming to e4 if you go with knight b3. Now that's not a good transition, because you don't want to give away your bishop. You're wasting time too much if you bring your bishop back. And it's not like, okay, at the moment I said like this knight looks nice centralized, but see, it's not like an outpost for the knight. Easily vulnerable to something like e5 coming somewhere. So if it's not an outpost, this knight is not having any future. You're not having c4. You have given away your threat. You have given away a possibility of playing e4 anytime. Then you understand that maybe this knight is looking good, but not the best idea. It's opening up. Generally, you would not want to kick your pieces back like this. But understanding that he cannot play knight e4, your goal is to exchange the knights. And after this, you have a choice. You can take a b3 and knight b3. I think a b3 would be better, because you're opening up. You have e4 possible, you have c4 possible, you have knight f3 in case it's needed to get the knight into the game. You have one more thing. When you see this pawns moved already forward, c5 is a hole. I can try to exploit it with b4 somewhere, prepare for it, of course, and then get the knight to c5. I have a lot of plans here, and thus this knight is the better knight to b3. But now let's move on to the game. He played c3, castle, and now he played bishop f6. So uh, I am, well, they have not called me definitely, but I would be happy to go on their stream, of course. Who wouldn't be happy? I cannot really pronounce your name, but who wouldn't be? Anyways, yeah, no problem, Ashank. Um, I've just started not too long ago. So bishop f6 and then e4. So now the position is opening up. White has gone for this. It's not like it's minus, but now also again black has some choices. He can choose to change into a multitude of structures here. Not a multitude, let's say two, three structures. Let's not make it, let's not hype it. Only two, three structures are possible that he can change it to. And immediately you're given a choice here. You have to decide which structure you can look at. So first I want you to figure out and tell me what are the two, three different structures I can go for here in this position. Then we'll try to decide which one we feel is the best in this particular position. And you can also, like, later after that, once you figure it out, you can choose, like, think about what tactical ideas, maybe some people are already looking for tactics here, that you have in this position, and decide like which one you think is the best. if there is any tactic. I don't think a tactic is going to work here, but it looks interesting. Definitely, like, 2 3 ideas. The one we were discussing at the start of the video. Like, what I was saying is knight into e4 will lead into three pawn structure, three versus sorry, 3 3 4 2. Like, 3 versus 2, 4 versus 3. That's a better way to put it. 4 versus 3. So you have that structure on the board: 4 versus 3, 3 versus 2, and 3 versus 2, and here it is 4 versus 3. So this is one structure that we can go into. The second structure that we can go into is, somebody said it already, IQP. Exactly. Bishop d4, say d4, knight e4, knight into e4, or bishop e4, whichever one. D into e4, bishop. Okay, okay, d into e4, bishop e4, and we have the IQP. Now, how to determine between these two structures which one is the better idea in this position? One small thing, like simple thing, IQP is generally good in the end game, that we all know. We just learned it a while back. IQP, generally, the more the exchanges, the better it is for the side who is not having the IQP. This is the isolated pawn. This is the weakness. But the more the exchanges, uh, the less effective IQP gets. But in the position, we can see that this bishop is active, is well placed. Your bishop is not really doing that great. Your pieces are underdeveloped. And one of the main things is that you cannot really attack d4 very easily. You cannot really initiate exchanges of the bishops very easily, and he can easily create more weaknesses in your position. And one more important simple thing is, he can also push d5 and try to exchange if he really wants to. IQP is off the board immediately. You don't want to push e5 because there is d6 coming, and that's a pass pawn, not very easy to exploit it. And if you do this, basically there is no more IQP. So if there is no more IQP, that doesn't make sense to enter this position at all. Because, like, see, it's like you should understand when exactly which idea will be good. Now imagine that you did not have these bishops on the board. Just imagine that these bishops were traded. You could have pretty well put the queen on d5, rook on d8, sorry, rook on d8, rook on c8, and easily exploited this IQP position, this isolated pawn. But since the piece placement is not good, your bishop is not coming to d5, we can clearly say that this position is probably not the best thing for IQP. On the other hand, if you were getting bishop c6 or you were getting bishop d5, pieces were activating and a queen was coming to d5, IQP would have not been a bad transition at all, because IQP is better for the side which is not having the isolated pawn as we head into the endgame. That is not the case here, so we know that one choice is off the board. The other choices, like knight into e4, we definitely know, and other choices, like besides that, b4 also is one more choice which you should keep in mind. It's trying to goes for some tactical resources and you create some possibilities like knight d3, knight a4, or bishop d4. Here also you're changing the structure, but you would only do this if you were really able to get your tactic to work, if you feel like it, because here I don't see it. Like knight b3, it's not very clear. Let's just say it could work out, but it's not very clear. Or you're getting good compensation for your bishops. For example, let me just show you ed5, ed5, and let's say bishop d5. Even here, white is a pawn up straight away, but black has two bishops to play with, too many threats to create, too many options and all to create. Then sometimes you can say that he has compensation. You can do this if you were worse and you're trying to get here, like, okay, it's fine, but here I don't see the reason why we need to do this. It's pretty much useless. You have knight into e4, you can take it slowly. So let's now see the game, what happened after knight into e4. He played knight into e4, knight into e4, d4, bishop e4, and rook b8. Again, white has choices. And how would you make these choices, or how do you try to do differentiate, determine what to do in such positions? Is first you have to evaluate it. Let's just flip it. You have to evaluate it from black side, you have to evaluate it from white side. If you're black here or you're white here, you should try to determine what are the weaknesses, what are the problems for us in this position, what are our active ideas, what are our benefits. Like, you can see that black has two bishops. You can see that white has better space advantage because he's out here in the open with a bishop on e4, bishop knight on d4. Knight is centralized, not an outpost. An outpost is something which cannot be gotten rid of, but it's centralized there on d4 very nicely. you have some ideas like getting your pieces in order. So if you feel like black is better, if you feel like his bishops are very strong here, then what is it that white can do? That is the way you should look at it. If you feel like white is uh, if you think black is sorry if you feel like white is worse here, then you should try to utilize the best of your pieces and try to create some active threats. So now first thing, like queen h5, of course, like you should look at your ideas. Queen h5, queen d3, queen c2, there are many things you can try to do to develop your pieces and get everything in order. But before that, you should try to understand, like, okay, maybe white is not as good, maybe I'm not comfortable here. Then I will look at it from a perspective where I'm trying to equalize. If you feel like black is better, let's say, if you feel like your position is better, you should try to gain as much space and try to immediately capitalize without allowing his two bishops to capitalize later in the game. Try to control some important squares, try to take some important outposts, maybe create more weaknesses, maybe exchange one pair of bishops if it's needed, if you feel like that will help you, etc. This is the first evaluation. Then you can start determine your plan. Like, one more thing, like, I'll just show you one simple thing which comes to my mind here. If I feel like white is worse, can anybody tell me? We have done this in the past. If you feel like white is worse here, what is the thing that you can do? Yes, exactly. That should come to your mind. If you feel like white is worse, you should remember the things that you have done earlier, or you should remember it yourself also. What is important? I can exchange maybe the into an opposite color bishops, and you know that opposite color bishops, even if I'm a pawn down, it is possible for me to hold a draw. It's possible. I mean, my now you should understand whose bishop is better. It is most definitely black's bishop who's better because he is having all the possibilities. But what you are thinking of is, no, I don't like his two bishops. It's not very nice. I see too many ideas popping in here, and I'm not very comfortable. I will exchange the opposite color bishops and play here into opposite color bishops and play. Then you can try to equalize in that way. Now, this may not be the exact position. Maybe black is already on his way. You have made some mistakes, the pawns on a4, you have done something wrong here. Then you can try to equalize in this way. This is the way you should look for ideas. Now, what my point is that, do we really need to do knight c6 immediately? Not really. We can try to improve some things in the process also. For example, we know that iqp is not a bad idea for us here. Even if I play queen f3, you know that he's not going to take bishop d4. That's helping us. D5 is there, rooks are coming out, his bishop is badly placed. What you are worried about is what you should think of first. And I'm sure everybody has seen the threat that b4 is a big problem here in this position. e5 from black is uh, not the best idea, Shresh. It is better to, use this bishop effectively. Like, use this on this diagonal and create problems with b4. That's the main, like, main one of the main ideas for black here in this position. So you can either approach it with knight c6, you can think of queen d3. And can anybody tell me now from black side, as we have done thus far, what move should you choose here? h6, g6, can anybody tell me what would you do here out in from black side? The pawn is under attack. I don't know, Itachi. I don't know who is the second best in the rating right now. I've not checked. Maybe Leon is the second best, Leon Mendonca. Yes, g6 is the best move in this position because you should understand that, okay, h6 is not weakening anything. It wouldn't be that bad, but maybe white could get creative by changing this setup. Like, let's say I do something like this, the bishop goes back, and somewhere it could come back to haunt you, and maybe again you will have to play g6, creating weaknesses here. So in this position, if you play g6, he doesn't have a light dark square bishop, doesn't really have pieces on the king side. And I further, with some players, like, once you start improving your position, you will be looking forward to pushing your pawns, like Siddhant Shreyas said, like e5 and f5. You will be trying to do that, and h6 doesn't really help us later. Okay, later down the road, h6 doesn't help us as much as something like g6 and e5 and f5. Like, you can easily do that with g6 more often. Your king also gets a nice safe spot here on g7, not very easy to exploit. uh well, I thought he was asking rating wise. So rating wise, if you, I think Mia Leon is higher at the moment. So queen d3 and g6 would be good. Now you can try to improve the same plan. Let's say knight c6 was your plan. You could try to improve it. Queen f3 and knight c6 is one more idea. But here actually the main point is b4 is a big threat here. So white played queen d3 actually. He played h6 in the game. That was not a good move. g6 was the better idea. He played h6 and white played rook a1 going for some dynamic play. But I want you to just tell me, just 1 minute guys. I want you to just tell me what you would do here in this position. No, sorry, this position here. What would you have done otherwise? Like, queen d3 was played in the game, but we just focused on the important plans and ideas. We will not go into the whole game. What could you have done better here as white? You know the important ideas for black in this position. Maybe you don't have enough resources to create an attack here on h7. Your idea finally will be to getting your rooks into the game, but first you can try to take care of white's idea, making your life a little bit easier. White's idea. Sorry, black's idea. What am I doing? Black's idea. You can go with the queen h5 ideas, of course, but first the queen h5 doesn't have enough resources, guys. That is what you need to understand. Like, just what will you do? You will get your bishop. Sorry, you will get a queen trap here straight away. You might not get it trapped. He might you will lose a piece. So queen h5 is okay, but you know that g6 is not a big weakness for him. You just don't have pieces. So maybe queen h5 not the best idea in this position. You can just play something like a3 to avoid b4 from coming here in this game. That is a better idea. Thanks a lot, Atul. Thanks a lot for tuning in, Atul. Atul also will be streaming later on at 9:30, which is Endgames. Do check it out, guys. Sorry. A5, and then also again we can stop this plan with two different things. One is b4 and one is knight c2. I will highlight these plans to you. Of course, you can look at knight c6 also, which I will show you in just a moment, guys. I'll just show you in a moment why exactly knight c6 also is a good idea. One is knight c2, one is b4. I want you to choose between these two and tell me which one do you think you will choose here. It's just a simple thing, and what we have done thus far should get into your head. Which one would you choose, b4 or knight c2? Yeah, we'll be doing that, guys. Rohan will be doing that, of course. I can show you examples from my own games. I have shown you already one own game with multiple time Commonwealth champion. I had shown one game where you know, how to defend in inferior positions. I have done this and that. Basically, inferior position. Let's say I'm giving an example right away here, which I'll show you in a moment. Okay, in this position itself, I'll show you inferior thing. Knight c2 is the better move, guys. Yes, of course, knight c2 is the better choice between these two. Looks passive. Yes, I agree with you, it is a passive move, but I think b4 is much more of a problem than playing b4 and making yourself a second weakness to worry about, along with that bishop still open on that diagonal. Very difficult after this to continue. All you can hope is for this knight to sit on c5 maybe, but still it will be a struggle. Like, if you move your knight, you're losing the c3 pawn. So in such a position, right, when you're having this backward pawn, you can take ab4 also and maintain a good edge. But one thing you can keep in mind in such positions is the more the pawns on the board, the more effective this bishops will be, and the more vulnerable this pawns, like the c3 pawn will be. Okay, because more pawns on the board, and whatever resources which your opponent has, right, sneaky resources which I will just show in a moment, it gets worded. So a move that you can play is just keep the structure just like this, ignore it, and develop your queen. Maybe that could be decent. Or you can push a4, keeping extra pawns on the board, stopping knight b3, knight c5 for later, and then you're trying to utilize creating weaknesses with rook c. You will double up your rooks, put your queen on b6, let's say, and create problems for white here on this dark square. That would be really a problem here for white. Now, why I'll show you here, okay? In this position, the third resource that I was telling you besides knight c2 is this one, knight c6. This enters an inferior position. Bishop c6, bishop c6, queen here, bishop moves back, let's say. My goal was to show you this plan after b4. Okay, now black is able to completely utilize his bishop, and he's most likely some way or the other going to win a pawn. And I'm going to give it to him, like rook b4. Let's just say I play queen f3, and he captures rook b2. Let's just say he does this. Okay. Now, what has happened here is I'm a pawn down, but the pawns are on the same side, which is first benefit. It is opposite color bishops which have a good chance of defending. Now, you should not enter this position unnecessarily, and you should also focus on the important things. Like if I want to give away my pawn, I would want to exchange my queens if it's possible. Like this is a better move. But still, like it's an inferior position, and you're giving away a pawn, but you're trying to utilize the small things, like opposite bishops on the board. The structure is on the same side of the board. These are the benefit things that you can try to utilize. The moment you exchange both the rooks, it's just a simple draw. After this, if you exchange both the rooks after this, then it's just a draw. It's not possible for black to win this. Now, if I take too long term, right, I will like think also about, like this square. Somewhere I might sacrifice my bishop and then try to hold a draw. This is too much, but it's linking a little bit too ahead. But one thing is, like inferior position, you can look at for opposite color bishops. You can look for the right exchanges. Maybe it could have been an opposite color bishop endgame. Maybe it could have been a rook endgame. It could have been entering a rook endgame with 4 versus 3. And that is where your endgame knowledge comes into play. Where if you don't know how to defend 4 versus 3 in a rook endgame, then probably you should go and learn it. Like, should try to play out those positions, because if you cannot defend those, then you will never be able to find this defensive resources also. Knight c2 was the move, a3 was the move. Like, okay, let's see what he did in the game. He played queen d3, and now we look at it from black's perspective. Black played h6, which I would not prefer. I would always prefer g6 for the reasons I told you. Queen c7. We'll just go through a few moves. a5 and see how he utilized these pieces. Okay, a5, bishop e8, rook d1. Black didn't take it easy. White didn't take it easily. He didn't do it something fast. He didn't respect this b4 maneuver. And now what has happened is black has kept all his pieces intact here. b4 has come in at the right time. Now it's going to become difficult for white to actually continue. Like, let's say cb4. This is one good thing he did, cb4, because okay, bc3 is a bigger weakness, allows rook b2 also. And sometimes black can also get creative with, like keeping the b pawn and then utilizing his rook if he can, or queen if he can enter there, and create further more problems with that extra pawn. So it's better to get rid of it and somewhere keep the chance of, like exchanging all the pieces and looking for opposite color bishop and game. You see what he did here? This is what I was trying to tell you. Like, white is looking for his resources. Knight c6, rook c6, rook b2, and he tried to get to opposite color bishop endgame because he realized that that position was inferior. Now, if you go back to the opening, if you go back here, you just saw this game. That's why I recommend players to see some games. You saw this, how this game ended up. You ended up in an inferior position after taking bishop f6, and maybe an inferior position after taking dc5. Maybe that was not the best move. Then you can go back, you can change your approach. You can see whether maybe I can look at games from c3, maybe that will end up better. Or maybe I look at a4, maybe that helps me. Or maybe I change my move order, maybe I go bishop f6, that helps me. Whatever it is, you can try to improve there and simply improve your position. Like here, I played knight d4, right? Maybe that did not help me as much. Maybe I'll look at knight e5 this time. You can try to improve and change your plans because you know what has happened in the later stages of that game. Definitely. And now let's move on to the next one. Let me just see. One minute, yes. Yeah. Okay. So here we have a different structure now, and we have a very symmetrical structure on the board. And most likely, some of you all will be aware of what structure this has come from in the game. Can you tell me which possible opening choices can get us this structure on the board? Anybody? Definitely, guys, you can hit the like button. Okay, if you checked it out, Itachi, that's good. Leon is definitely Goan, right? Maybe he's not Goan anymore. I don't know. But as per rating, I think it is Leon if he's playing for Goa, but I don't know. Yes, Ruy Lopez. It is definitely one of the structures from Ruy Lopez, but it doesn't take too long for the game, like even one small two, three changes here, the structure to be changing, very resembling the Sicilian. It could come in from Sicilian too. Like some like popular lines nowadays, like after e4, c5, knight f3, d6. Sometimes white goes with bb5 check, doesn't play d4. In those kind of games, you definitely tend to get such structures too, like symmetrical structures like this. Sicilian also you can have this. Najdorf is a different story, but you can get this most likely through um, Ruy Lopez. Get it through Ruy Lopez, and you can also get it through some King's Indian structures. You can also get it through, like, let's say I'll just play a couple of moves. G6. Let's say the bishop is on G7. You can get this to Sicilian through where you play E5 moment later. So close Sicilian structures. You can get it through English, not English exactly. I would say, what do you say that? Reverse. Reverse English, and that structure also you can get this position. So you have multiple ways you can get these positions. Maybe there will be a few moves, pawn moves, additional, etc., but relatively some similar structures here. And you can also now see that there are some changes that can happen immediately in this structure. For example, if you play d5, it is uh, closed roll pairs on the board. If you play dc5 or d5, that is open on the board. If you allow cd4 also, sometimes you allow cd4, once again you have the c file open. So we will look at some of them, and however much we can do today, and we will see what exactly we should continue in those possible structures like the cd4. uh, if you take d5, what are the possible, immediately you know what are the possible weaknesses and hit points here. Looks very juicy. I think one piece here can go there. Knight can go head to d5. Similarly, what you should not do, you push c4. That's it. That's a bad story there with allowing knight d4. These are the things we will try to see. One more thing you should not allow is, even black is not like just sitting down there. He also sometimes looks for moves like c4, where let's say his knight is on d7, he thinks of getting his knight into an outpost. So these are outposts, guys. The d5 square is an outpost for white, d3 square is an outpost for black, because no pawn can get rid of us from there. Only pieces can do it. So you should be cautious, like, okay, such an idea exists. Maybe I can keep my queen on e to stop c4 there. Maybe you should also realize that if I play something like b3 to stop it, maybe my opponent still might play something like c4. And your idea was not to take, but your idea was to play b4 to restrict him from entering there. You could also be creative. Basically, we're trying to figure that out. So let's get going with the game now. Just look at this game. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5. Okay, came from this, and it's come from this basically this tennis variation. Castle, knight f6, key1, c3. I mean, there are some complicated lines also with d4, giving up a pawn and all and playing, but we are not looking at opening theory here. We are looking at the simple structures. So bishop e3, bishop g7, bishop g5, castle, knight d2. So what we are going to do is we're going to stop right here and look at the different plans that are available in the position. What are the different things that black tries to do in this position? For example, let's look at it from white side first. And besides playing bishop g5, what other plans would you try to implement in this position? So many plans in Ruy Lopez. Would you want to close down the center with d5? Would you want to play d into e5? Would you want to develop your knight? Where exactly would you want to develop your knight, etc.? Karukan, yes, we will do that also. Like maybe tomorrow we'll do Karukan, okay? We'll look at some openings which are main, they're played more often. Ruy Lopez is played very often, that's why. You can play h3. Each move will have their own benefits and plans and ideas. Yeah, I was right? Okay. So each plan will have their own benefits and ideas. You should also be aware of what your opponent can plan out. You should also time your moves very effectively. Sometimes in these positions, right, Black has a nice idea of playing, let's say after bishop g5, or let's say after knight b2. This is also another plan in this position, trying to get your knight to g3, stable square there. Now castle knight f1. One plan here for black is to take ed4, knight a5, and play something like c5. Immediate change in the structure. So we had seen that position where there were two extra pawns here, right? c3 white pawn and e5 black pawn. So we had that change. Black could take ed4, cd4. Why exactly he did it like this? Because he has a bishop on g7 that he can utilize for his benefit. You should think of it. Maybe ed4 is good. Maybe if you feel like, okay, this is not a plan that I want to face, what is your going to be your plan? You cannot really wait and play knight f1, right? You will have to play d5. So determining where exactly which will be useful, how exactly it is supposed to be played is what we'll try to look at some of them. We cannot look at all plans, but we'll look at some of them. So bishop g7, knight b d2 is one plan. Then there are other plans also which should be there. Like let me highlight some plans. I highlighted knight d2. One is bishop g5, trying to initiate weaknesses. One is h3, trying to stop bishop g4 nuances here. Don't want us annoying pin forcing the some problems here on the d4 square. That is also one more plan, and one more plan I think is something like a4, where you can try to activate the rook on the a file without like trying to develop a knight and a bishop and then trying to get it to d1. We have seen this before, how we sorry, rook to d1, like you to try to sometimes get it this way. You don't want to do that, you can do it this way also. Now in modern times we've also seen other interesting plans like a3. So that the point of a3 is you realize the importance of this bishop on this diagonal. All you want to do is keep the bishop on a2 on this position. So maybe you can utilize it here. One more thing I'll just show you from black's point of view, a simple small thing. Like if I play something like h3, right, white will not play ed4 early if it's not necessary, okay? And the reason is that cd4, knight e5, let's say bishop e2 and he castles, okay? Let's just say this is on the board. White, he's opening up another possibility for white. And what is that possibility? Can anybody tell me? Like there's a big difference. We saw a position with, let's say knight goes to f1 and then black does ed4 and then c5. Okay, what is the difference that I'm trying to highlight here? After ed4, knight a5, and let's say castle. Okay, more order, let's ignore, we're not thinking about opening. What is it, that extra possibility? Now from white's point of view, guys, Sanjeev, white's point of view, what does white get extra? I'm not talking about tactics here. I'm just talking about simple. Tactically means I may have played something wrongly here in the mod. I'm talking about simple positional things, like, small changes can make big impacts. E5, of course, would be good. Bishop G5 may be the best move. We don't know. But if he does this early, yes, Rama, very nice. That knight comes out to C3. That is the extra possibility that white has allowed. If this knight is if knight is very well placed on C3, if it is, then that's an extra thing that black has allowed me by capturing ed4 a little bit early, just one or two moves early. That's not really a good idea. And sometimes you see players waiting. Sometimes this you see players doing a3, and you wonder why exactly is this guy playing a3, because he knows that one of the possible plans is ed4, knight a5, c5. Even after castling, let's say h3 castle, sometimes white develops like a casual bishop g5 here. Okay, just give an example. Your plans. Okay, bg5 is like, just falling to tactics, failing to tactics, so let's not play bishop g5. a3 is a good example. Okay, he knows your plans. Your plans are ed4 and knight a5, c5. That's the next idea. He knows rook e8, he can annoy you with knight g5. So ed4, cd4, knight here, and suddenly you see that his knight is not just going here, but it is coming to a more active knight c3. You try to lock him down, and the bishop can also activate via this later if he needs it. Maybe gets e5. He's able to utilize his knight on c3 with more space, and maybe effectively utilize it in this position. So additional possibility that you've given, and you should also try to realize that, okay, he has played a3, right? He's not changed much. His bishop is only going to a2. Is that a problem? If it's not, you can also do something similar. H6. Wait for your opponent. If it's not weakening anything, okay? I'm just giving an example of a waiting move. If it's not weakening anything, then it's okay. A better move could maybe be something like queen e7, maybe getting a queen there, or even like rook e8 is also okay, guys. Like knight g5, like you can easily get rook e7 also, and then kick it away with h6. It's also fine. But you understand that ed4, he's playing the option of knight c3. Now let's see what happened in the game. Okay, he played bishop g5, black played castle, knight b2, rook e8. Now, h6 may have been the better move according to engine, but we don't know his exact idea. He played rook e8. So, can anybody tell me what possible plans you would implement in this position here? A3 looks odd, of course, but it is, Roy Lopez is so experimented. Like, one thing you should know about Roy Lopez structures is that even if you make one mistake, you do get a second chance. It's not going to lose you immediately. In positions of Sicilian and Najdorf and Dragon, you make one mistake, you're most likely on your way towards the downs this year. You're going to most likely enter into a very inferior position. Then you'll have to use the things that we know, opposite bishops, how to play pawn down, etc. So there it is a little important to play more cautiously. Here, one mistake will be most likely a positional one, not a tactical one I'm talking about. It's still possible to, come back. You still are not going to be lost. Unless, of course, you allow, let's say, play d4 and then play knight a5. And okay, now you cannot come back, of course. This is the time. In Sicilian, of course, you have positions which are more open and dynamic. Royal Pace, you don't really have more open and dynamic. You have like a closed position more often. So even if you make one mistake, you still have like a3. It may not be a best move. Let's say I play rook 8 and I play a3. This is a bad move, right? Because they are like you're playing bishop a2. That's the only idea. You're not helping knights. Nothing else is help here. Maybe a waste. You could have done a4, which could have been more active. But that one small mistake is most likely not going to cost you the game. It just maybe gives black the initiative, which he also needs to play precisely to exploit. So it is a position where it's not immediately going to lose. So rook e8 in the game. How would you continue as white here in this position? Any plans? Any ideas? Sorry, blood edge. Any ideas, guys? What would you try to do? Would you try to open? Would you try to close? Do you think d5 is a good move here, etc.? Like that is all we are trying to figure out. Then we move on to the next position. Any ideas, guys? Let's see the chat. Rook c1. See, that is exactly why you don't want to play. Like you have to formulate your plans correctly. Rook c1 is not really helping us, right? It's on the closed file. Why are you putting it here? That's not really helping. Maybe you can go with knight f1 and knight g3 and try to go along with the game. With knight f1, knight e3 also you can look at other tactical resources maybe. Or you can think of changing the structure and try to utilize the key important squares. For example, d into e5, d into e5, then knight f1, and you can try to head your knight to d5. You should also realize, like, once you change the structure, where exactly does the knight belong? Like, now does it belong on g3 here? Not really, because it is not doing anything. It's not heading anywhere. So just because, like, knight on g3, oh, roll up as knight on g3, that doesn't mean that you should always go there. You can try to improvise. Now if I play knight e3, I will do a blunder. I don't want to give away my pawn like this. What I will do, I'll just defend that pawn and then maybe take it via e3 to d5. So we should try to formulate which plans are good. Now one more thing, like if I play d5, yeah, is that a good idea? This is always engine's idea, okay, to play d5 in the position. D5 is his final goal. Most likely, if there is no tactic, d5 is what he does. So he thinks like space, and that's it. But the point is that d5 doesn't really immediately lock down the position and does keep the possibility of going c6 and get back and try to improvise. But one thing, like in some players play Chigor and they go with knight a5 in this position. They forget that the knight right after this does have difficulty getting back into the game. There is no way that he can actually come to any possible square. It's basically bad on b7. And if you know this, maybe you can just improve that knight. I don't really need to attack this bishop now. He has locked himself. Let's go the other way. Let's go to e7 and try to get c6 and try to open it up later. So where would you do this? We'll look at it in the next position. But you got some few ideas how to continue, which are the right changes in the position, and what to do. Light square bishop after d5, you don't really do anything. You try to play out slowly. See, if you only do d, you have to understand that if you do d5, only if you're having something on the king side. You're going to go for an attack like say rook f1, f4. That is the way you look at it. You try to get that going in your game. You want to get f4, you want to get an attack going. Otherwise, d5 is basically pointless. But we look at the next position here. And here we see that he has played c5. We have some forces lined up. Here a move like d5 is possible. Is it the best? We don't know yet. It's not it's not entirely the best because we still don't have enough resources. But it's possible. You can lock down the position because let's say if black is a little like I told you one idea for black here, right? So let's say his knight is a little bit badly placed on a5. We should try to get it back into the game. Let's say he plays something like can he play here? Okay, if you play something natural, this will not come. But if I play something like b4 here, it's important that he gets his knight to c4, like cb4, cb4, and knight c4. If he tries to just keep it passively with knight b7, that knight is not going to come back from anywhere unless you can get rid of this b4 pawn, which is going to be a struggle. The knight is not having real good chances to get back. But in one of the openings in the roll and you tend to go the knight here. I don't like that opening very much, but the knight tends to go to d8 and come to f7. Sneaky maneuvers, very slow, but yeah, but I just wanted to highlight the knight on b7 has become a real passive piece. And especially if you have opened up, then possibly if you go here, then basically the knight will never come back into the game only. You will not have enough time to do that. I will keep attacking you. You will not get time to, do all your stuff on the other side. You will be too slow. And probably you'll just run out of time here probably. You might keep the position closed and maybe try to do it, but still I'd have I don't like this, like the knight going all the way here. It's very difficult to do that, exit too many maneuvers, and it's not very ideal in that position. But a d5 is possible, but which one would you prefer in this position, understanding the change? Let's say, would you prefer d5 or would you prefer d into e5 here? Which one would you prefer? Yeah, d into e5 would be the preferable choice because again, not very hard to understand. He has made a d5 weakness here. You can try to exploit it. Maybe you can wait for a move. We play knight f1 first, but generally this will be the better idea in such a position. Let's say I play knight f1, knight e3. I was telling you about things where the knight can try d3. In this position, like c4, knight, let's say the knight comes to d3. But it's not really happening here. You have a bishop on c2. Your knight is heading to d5 much faster. And if he plays g5, he's most welcome because that's a welcome weakness on f5 that I can also exploit with my knight. Now I'll just show you how to convert this. Let's say I play knight e3, okay? I play something like knight d7 to defend it. You want to take over the square, you can do it directly, but you can also think of other things or other pieces that you can improve in this process. So can anybody tell me what they would do first in this position? Maybe black is looking forward to doing something like this. Besides knight d5, knight f5, can we bring more pieces into the game or uh, improve some other pieces here besides, like, directly going with knight f5? Can we capitalize on some important weaknesses? Anything? This is a little boring, but I mean, it does happen. Maybe the natural structures and all are more exciting with a lot of tactics. But if you're playing Ruy Lopez, then you should know all this. I have played Ruy Lopez also. Just you have to know these maneuvers, some of them. Yes, Rama, it would be better to play d5 because I highlighted the point. Why exactly? Any maneuver or anything that you would try to improve into a better position? Anything? Any piece? Let's say I'll give you a wild this. Uh, you don't have to figure out black's resources. Which piece would you want to get off black's board here? Any ideas? Queen d6. Oh my. The queen is on his way, is it? Trying to do what it does best. With so many minor pieces around, you want to take the queen inside, Ashish? Probably not a good idea, Ashish. Like with so many minor pieces surrounding you, they might just get a little creative here around this queen. Create nice blockades. Imagine knight coming on d4 and then bishop f8. Your queen is trapped. No, I don't think queen d6 is okay. It's like it's a dynamic move, but it's not really needed in this position. You have a simple approach. You should not go for unnecessary things like this, which can get your queen trapped. Oh, that it's it's not a good idea. It may still be better, but like you'll have to take you have to calculate a lot more, or yeah, engine may suggest such moves, but I don't really like it. Like it's not a positional simple thing that you can do. Simple means you can try to initiate more weaknesses in black scam, or try to improvise your pieces to better squares. So if you want to think of exchanges, exchange these pieces off the board, you're most likely going to win, like easily, like not even going to struggle, because there are so many pieces, so many squares which are weak. His bishop is dead, and there's hardly anything left. If you exchange the light square bishops, it's basically over for black. So if you have faced, if in your game, if you come across these weaknesses, you should try to exploit them to your benefit. Remember which pieces are important, which pieces are not important or out of the game. So I was just saying about like simple moves. Sometimes this move like b3 would be good to try to keep this knight out, and sometimes it's very bad because he gets an outpost in this position. So b3 is only done if you like he's not able to get an outpost or something. Then you can do something like b3 to keep his knight away. But here I think we don't need to try too hard. We can think of the side where he has created weaknesses or where he has less pieces, and we can try to initiate more weaknesses, change the structure a little bit, and then try to benefit from that. And now we can get a pieces going. This is one way to try to transition into a better position. The other way, knight h2. Should remember the small maneuvers. If his knight goes somewhere else to the other side, right? Now queen h5 and knight g4 and then knight f5, and every piece is on the king side here, completely smashing through. Black is not in time there. Like if he plays knight c4, I'm not even going to be concerned on that side. My idea is here, I know that my tactical resources should be enough. I can add some few pieces into the game maybe, and I think we are on our way to make things exciting here on the king side. Can anybody tell me what they would do here? Again, this is a not a difficult tactic, I would say. You can play it in a simple way also. You can play it in a difficult way also. But the plan should be very simple and easy. What is the plan that I can go for? So many pieces aiming there. Maybe you just need to open up on that side. Knight g4. F6. I think F6 is more natural, guys. Like F6 is definitely the more natural one. Although Knight G4 is probably engine's top preference. I think I put it in here as Knight G4 top, but F6 looks more natural. Like we should keep it simple. Bishop goes back and then Knight G4, Knight H6. I think we are definitely crashing through. Knight G4 is also winning, but it's winning anyways, no matter what, because just understanding the pieces thing we have done earlier, the pieces are not really close. Rook was not really important to attack, and we can ignore it and like go for mate maybe, or play f6. We are winning in so many different ways. So probably winning in every possible way. But then your tactics flow in the next thing. You have to just formulate them correctly, especially if you see a weakness. And similarly, you should not do a weakness as black. You should try to avoid it. You should try to avoid it. And maybe you can put your queen on c7 would be bad. Maybe you can, what can you do here? Maybe you can put bishop on c6, or bishop on c6, then maybe queen e7, and then maybe c4. You can try to improve slowly in this position. Try to get something going. If he plays, of course, a bad move, then you should capitalize straight away. Now it's okay because you're winning a pawn. Now if you're winning a pawn, that's okay, right? Like of course, like you're not going to leave that pawn go. And even if it's like and you're winning a pawn and you're allowing some exchanges, see, you're not in an excellent position. Let's say you're thinking that you're not in an excellent position, then maybe these exchanges are okay for you. Like putting his pieces in bad structures, maybe you're even better as black here in this. You have improved your position significantly. Your bishop has opened up, and you're able to utilize your pieces for some play or the other. Oh, sorry, that's a blunder. No, not a blunder actually. Or maybe a blunder actually. Maybe you have knight g4 coming finally. That's bad. And then rook e5, and then knight g4, and then rook into e4, and then knight f6. Okay, that was a blunder, but you could definitely maybe just get your rook in and play it easy, take it easy, and I think black is okay here. Again, Ruy Lopez, not very easy to explain all the ideas. It depends also on positions, depends on what exactly he can do, which are the important things. Whether they played c5, but I'll try my best. I'll even cover this some tomorrow, some quick examples, some important structures again, and let's move on and see some close structures now. Okay, just 1 minute. Yeah, basically I had shown this structure earlier, like what the transition can be. So let's just move on to the game. Now here, this is a game from Karpo's game. I remember because I remember the bishop on a7. This was one of Karpo's ideas. Like he understood that okay, he had two rooks here. Black was trying to exchange rooks. He went from bishop a3 to bishop a7 in this game. Now I don't have the name of the players here, but I know that this is definitely most definitely Karpov. He went with bishop a7, and now, let's just see how the game went along. Okay, he has blocked out on this side with bishop a7, preventing the exchange of the rooks. You should try to figure out how to improve and how to continue in this. Can we really attack these pawns? Because roll pairs are basically like positions like this only, guys. Like it is a little bit closed and it's more about piece activity and trying to go along with how to improve your pieces, how to put them in better squares, looking at the right time to open something. So can anybody can tell me what they would try to do here? Explain through your own ideas if you feel like it. How would you do? How would you continue in this position? Maneuvering. These are the important things to remember in Royal Pairs. Maneuvering, right exchanges, and fortresses. Because if black sets up a fortress, then etc. So you don't want to allow fortresses. You want to find out the right time to go for an opening and try to maneuver your pieces, initiate weaknesses from your opponent, place your pieces in the best squares possible, and welcome to Royal Lopez. So what would you do next here? Anybody? Any ideas? I think we have our pieces in the right squares. Maybe you can think of whether we can improve them to better squares. Like, can we do this? So, can we do this? Can we zigzag out to g4? Do we have time? Is something getting in the way? Can we move this knight somewhere better? If not, if you have improved your position enough, then you can think of whether I can initiate more weaknesses or I can blunder. Like, no, that is not, you want to blunder, of course. So, f4 is the way. You can think of, okay, finally, I've done enough improvements. I've prevented the exchange of the rooks. It's time. It's time to go for that opening. I need to finally open up. Cannot just play closed and win the game. Finally, you try to open up and try to capitalize, create weaknesses, see where black's pieces are placed. That is a very important point when I play f4 here. Black has placed his pieces in the worst possible squares here for meeting f4. Like you can see that the e5 square is a weakness that you immediately create with f4, but there are absolutely no piece. That knight is unfortunately missing out on this d8 square. He will have to create f6 or something, some weaknesses to get his knight out to e5, which probably takes a little bit of time, and in the process create some holes that we can exploit. And after ef4, let's say we play something like knight f4, or we can even think of playing knight f3 or something. Let's say we take knight f4. You can further, even like let's I said, like in role play generally one move doesn't really cost you too much. You can even further, like, try to improve to some of these weeks, especially if he's trying to badly get his knight here. You can try to exploit this squares by improving a knight, or maybe even get better by improving this knight into the game. Suddenly that knight is hitting the d6 square, e6 square. You can also try to eradicate, not eradicate, like get rid of pieces which are uh, doing the most important resource of defense. If you feel like this knight, you can try to exchange your bishop for it, which is a bad idea here, but you can think of it, of course. Now f4, he played f6 here, very passive. Everything is trying to see what I told you, maneuvering of pieces, doing the right breakthroughs, uh, restricting opponent's pieces, and black's sometimes black's ideas are fortresses. He's trying to just hold everything together. So now you see that f6 means white played a nice move. He closed down the position, but he realized the importance of it. We'll just see how he played it. Instead of playing knight f3, which would also be good, white played f5 here, completely locking down even further. But he has understood the dynamic of the position. Black's pieces are just dead here, and he's just going to beautifully exploit them. We'll see that in a moment. Okay, black is playing g5. So this is where, like, understanding when the fortress will work, when it not work is also important. Black had no clue. Probably, maybe he thought that he can hold everything together here, but Karpov is Karpov, and he just started improving his position. What is the next step he took in this? Can anybody tell me? He's in no rush. You know that your knight cannot really, jump around everywhere like to benefit. There is no open square for the knight. So it's time to maybe improve pieces which are dead for you, which are not really doing anything at the moment. They're sleeping, so maybe time to wake them up. Time to put them on some squares. Time to do some important exchanges. See which black pieces are good, which black pieces are horrible, which black pieces are good, which black pieces are horrible, which black pieces are good. Maybe this bishop has some space, some breathing room, can move to 2 3 squares at least. This knight is unfortunately looking for space. Is tied down there on c7 at the moment. So bishop c2, bishop d1, knight g3. This is the way he played it out, and black was simply outplayed here. Absolutely nothing to do. Let's just see how he did it, okay? Because black is having, like, moving around his knight on b7. It's a funny story. You should also see that, if you're locking down the position, like this is also, in, let's say, an olden game, not that old. Karpov is more like related to the modern generation, but olden game nevertheless. And that time they were not very good with this dynamic and active counterplay, and so he has locked down the position. He's playing h6 here, and white just he displayed beautifully that, okay, a file is open, right? That's good enough. As one file is there, I would just capitalize on all the weak squares, and black will absolutely have nothing. This was the better piece, this was the bad piece. Took care of that piece. This bishop is not coming in, this queen is dead, knight is dead, knight is dead, rook is dead. There's nothing. White's pieces are at least like actively placed, and these knights will do a nice job now. They will jump around. Let's see how they do it. Queen d1, rook a3. Cool move. What is this? This is just a waiting move. I'm thinking of what to do. Let me just take one breather, improve my piece. Found a plan, found a tactic to support my plan. Winning the queen. Improved my piece to a better square. Exchange that, capitalize with queen h5, realizing that the endgame now is going to be winning, and this is a nice way to transition into it. Finally, I need to create holes and openings. I am trying to create some possibilities here, and I'm okay with you taking on g6 because that's the hole I'm eyeing. The knight needs to enter there. Hit king f8, knight h5, and immediately Balak resigned here because he realized that he has nothing to do. Absolutely nothing. Queen into g6, fg6, knight f5. If you play queen e7, what will you do? When you have entered inside, it's good enough. Maybe you can use your tactical resources. Like, can we do this? You can probably do this and win. Maybe. Just an idea. If it does this, do this, enter. Final thing is, like, your tactics will come into play. And maybe you can do this and simply finish it off. You have many ways to finish this position. But now, what is your take and what is your learning from this is that you cannot play this slowly. You cannot play like what black did in the position. You have to realize where your pieces are badly placed. Knight on c7, knight on d7, not doing anything. Where it's important to, let's say I was black here, I would have snapped this pawn on f4. I know f5 is going to be lost for me anyways. I really cannot, I know that it's not going to work. Like, this is definitely not going to work. My pieces are dead. I will play f4. I will take my chances. I might even like give up a pawn with f5, e5, and that's where you can use your resources like opposite color bishops, some interesting sacrifices like rook a7, rook a7, bishop h6. Now it's lost, of course, maybe, but you're looking for something at least in this position, looking for counterplay. That is where, like, if playing an inferior position, black didn't do it the best. I would have definitely looked for something like this. Now, this positions, right? If I look at ef4 and knight f4, now you have a Ruy Lopez. This position is also very similar to something which comes from Benoni and Benko. Those structures also you have something similar like this, since the c3 pawn. But some of the interrelated positions are there. So even if you play different openings, you should know these structures, because you never know when you could enter such a similar structure on the board and could benefit you. Now, it was a little boring to see the maneuvering plans. Of course, I agree. But if you know them, then you will not waste too much time on the board and you'll execute the right one without wasting too much time on the clock, or even making a mistake and executing the wrong plan. Like, my common idea is here to just exchange the bishop rooks. That gives him so much breathing room, because it eases of one thing. One pair of exchange of rooks, his rook is better placed and opens up just one square for the knight, and that one square is enough. It's enough for black to get something going. Just one idea. I mean, you're in time to stop it because you are a good player. But if you make a mistake and just think, okay, I'll go that side, one square is enough for this knight to enter in, and suddenly you get some breathing room. That is exactly the thing that you can try to stop, right? Your opponent cannot allow your opponent to do that. Okay, let's see the next thing. Yeah. Okay, let's just play through the game quickly so that you can see that this is also a case, right? Knight f3, knight c6. We suddenly had a different move order completely, and white is played e4, and we have back in roll this. So, transpositions of openings. This is a very silly transposition with knight f3, knight c6. White was maybe intending to play red t with g3, maybe he's intending to play d4. Suddenly he saw an opportunity. Oh, he played knight c6, let's play e4. Suddenly back into Ruy Lopez territory here. bb5, a6, bishop a4, knight f6 castle, bishop e7. So all standard here. Let's see what he did after h3, knight a5, bishop e2, c5, d4. Chigorin position, queen c7, and white played d5 here. So again, white has choices here. Nowadays, mostly people play knight bd2 in this position, but d5 is a very common choice here, and the highlights of d5 are immediately seen. Like, it's not bad move. It's not a bad move. Highlights of d5 are immediately seen here. Tries to keep this knight at bay. Knight will most likely try to do this. But if you are black in such positions, right, what would you do immediately here? Like, can anybody tell me? You know the problems that black faces in these positions. So, can you tell me what black would try to do in this position? Black could try to do, black should try to do. Any ideas? Can you tell me in the chat? Roll up as means the chat went dead completely. Like, they saw a close position and they left. All the ideas have disappeared completely. This is not the only thing we'll do. Like, tomorrow, maybe we'll do some tactics also through this opening. So it's not like we'll do only at the positional ideas. We'll also look at some tactical resources from those particular positions. But let's say you're black here, you have just looked at the position, you know where your pieces are badly placed. The ideas that you can look at is try to activate them to better places immediately before black, white, shuts you down there on the b7 square, just like it happened in Karpov's game previously. Anything? Nothing? Let me show it to you. Knight c4 and knight b6. I'm just trying to improve my knight to b6 so that I'm not going to be shut down on the b7 square immediately. That's one idea we can think of in this position. So b3, and my knight doesn't reach, like, b7, and then, it had no square to go. It was like struggling to breathe. At least now I can use it for some activity and some active ideas. So this is one thing you can try to do. Second, you can do is like ignore him. Okay, I'm not going to move my knight and allow him to lock me down. I'll just play knight d7 and try to look forward to creating my own breakthroughs on that side. It could be also with somebody saying knight at h6 and knight at 7. Very nice. You can try to look for f5. You can try to look for knight g5 and try to open up the position. Now we'll see what black did in the game. He played c4. That is also another way to try to take care of anything we do with b4. But white plays this move b4 nevertheless, and that is, we'll see what the problem is, right? cb3 ab3. It was premature to play this move, little too early. And now we will see that if black, like white is very this, right? If let's say bishop d7, let's say white had played bishop e3, shall I activate my knight with knight b7 and try to get it back into the game via c5? I can create some possibilities here on the e4 square, right? I think that looks like a good idea to me. Should we do it? Like maybe we can get the knight to c5 and c4, bishop d7, knight c6. Yes, rook e8, g6, bishop f8. Yes, of course, those plating plans are also good. Just like I told you, like in Ruy Lopez, you're not most likely going to immediately lose, even if you make some mistakes. And you can try to choose better squares. Knight b7 is an excellent plan in this position, trying to get your knight to c5. Nagamani, excellent. Yes. So we should also see what white is trying to do. You can try to activate your knight to c5, and then what happens is b4 and your knight is dead. And that's exactly the thing that you should be on the lookout for in Ruy Lopez positions. Very subtle ideas, and sometimes very difficult to understand as to just what just happened here. b4 is, how is my knight dead? The point is, you look at the resources which knight has for further improvement. It's stuck here on b7. Will be very difficult to get the knight to f7 unless you get your f5 and all going quickly here. And if you're doing something like this, at least you should get something in return quickly. Here you're not getting that. For example, let's say you had played knight d7 and my opponent, I'd say I did this and I played bb7, knight b7. At least here if he plays b4, I'm able to get something like knight b6, knight c4. I'm able to play f5, knight d8, knight f7 quickly. Then it's okay. Again, these are little boring plans and they're not direct plans. I have absolutely no idea, Shantanu. Absolutely no idea. I have never done anything on that platform, so I don't really know. Uh, Knight b4, knight b7. Like you should try to picture and like try not to put it in that squares so that you can effectively. What microphone? Like it's just Fiffin microphone, something, some model. Don't remember the exact one, but yeah, Fiffin. Bishop d7 and you can try to improve. Again, these positions are a little boring. So tomorrow what we can do is we can definitely look at some tactical resources through these positions also. Some highlights on tactics, how some tactical ideas also from Ruy Lopez also I'll have for you. And y'all can also tell me which what suggestions you all have from this, like what you all need, what you all want. You all, like some, we will be doing the other openings also, but what exactly do you all want to learn from these positions? Ruy Lopez is so big that if you want to learn one opening and one idea, it can take like 15-20 days just to learn one idea, because um, you cannot really explain all the plans. I just explained some highlights and some important plans where exactly you should develop the night, but it does take like a lot of time to explain everything in this. Um, Endgame and tactics will be doing in the next one. Endgames will be doing in the next one. Tactics I'm trying to implement in my middle game also. And we, anyways, Ashish will be solving puzzle studies and all like on our streams anyways frequently. In the recent times we have been not doing that, but we might definitely have ideas to do a night stream with puzzles and all. So stay tuned for that. We'll be doing that. We anyways were doing puzzle rushes earlier, puzzle rush survival, not puzzle rush fast solving, and we'll be doing more of those tactic things, etc. Also studies, you're interested in that also, like we can definitely do not studies exactly, but some different sort of tactical ideas and patterns. We can do a series on that too, and we'll do videos also regularly. So if you do enjoy it, then definitely do subscribe and hit the bell icon, guys, and definitely don't forget to like. It does bring more people. It's a small reminder, does motivate us also more. The more likes we see, the more content we are willing to put. Not that we would not put it, but does help motivate us. Like, we have seen some ideas here in this position. uh we'll just see what happens. Let's say if the position draws into further here. Let's just 1 minute. Let's say we go here in this position. What exactly, like, would you try to do as white? What exactly would you try to do as black in this position? The position is closed, the knight has headed to b7, like it has gone there. What would you try to do? Again, it's a boring position, guys, but uh you have to deal with it if you play Ruy Lopez. Like in one of the previous positions, right, we had done, the bishop was already on g7. That's why I done that. It was Sokolov's game where the bishop was on g7. The starting thing we did in Ruy Lopez. Now, if the bishop is not on g7, if there is a pawn on d5, if you're trying to develop your knight, where should it go? Most likely you can take it to d2, rook e8, knight here, and let's say something like bishop f8. You can take it to g3 definitely, because this time there is no pawn on g6 and you can actually benefit from some attack on this quest. And then you can always think of where I can improve. Like, this is a big positional mistake. Can I try to improve on it? Can anybody tell me what is white's best move apart from knight g3? Always be alert for the small resources. Well, you're glad. We are glad that if you feel like, uh, we will be continuing it, of course. But if you feel like chess is very easy, then that's excellent. That is the entire goal, to make chess easy for you. And we are also looking forward to your suggestions. Endgame videos we already make, Prashant. It's already on our channel. We'll be adding more and more content. Of course, we are of course recording it simultaneously. So we will be adding more content. We'll be doing some series on some some classical players also. We have a series, we'll be continuing with that. Right now we're doing the similar thing, so we did not put any videos, but we'll have videos on that too up on our channel soon. We'll be scheduling it soon. We have other content also planned out, some short content, short games, etc. And whatever live games that happen around the world once it starts, that also will be covering up on a very regular basis. And games, yes, of course, we'll be putting out more videos. We already have a lot by Nandini on our channel. You can definitely check out the playlist. We have an endgame playlist, and we'll have more also, instructive, basic, and we can do a short endgame series also, highlighting some important endgames and get to know you more. If you want to learn in games, guys, you can definitely visit Atul's channel, Atul Dahale. You can just search him there. I don't have the link here, but he's also doing a basic in game series right now, starting at 9:30. You can definitely visit there. Now, Bishop G5, exactly, RK, very nice. Bishop G5 is the move here. So these are the small things that make a big difference, because now his knight is not having a good square to go to. And Bishop E7, like I said, in Ruy Lopez, like, even if you make one small mistake, you're not going to most likely lose. It's a positional mistake, but it is not a mistake like in Sicilian where it's going to be over. One move, okay, Bishop E7, I will take a break. I will come back, move my queen, and then do something. You can do that, but it's definitely a positional mistake which white can try to capitalize. Small mistakes make big impacts. Knight on B7 always should be at the back of your mind that knight doesn't have space. If he plays something like C4, let's say, sorry, C4, I will play b4, lock it down there, and I can do what my next step. I can take my further things there, lock it down there on that side, completely keep it inside, and then try to further improve on this side of the board. Knight h2, whatever plan you have. Similarly, let's say opponent plays something differently. Maybe you don't have that rook c8 idea. Knight g3 is one thing, but since the position is locked down in the center, you can always think of, g4 and also like try to expand with knight g3, because the center is locked. Okay, you don't want to do that with the pawn on d4, if because, or let's say you have taken d5 d5, you don't want to do something like g4 there, weakening your structure. Only if the center is locked. That's also one simple thing to keep in mind. Center locked, you can play on the flank very easily. If you're black, center is he's playing on the flank, is attacking you, open up the center, try to attack on the other wing, something like that. Your center is locked, so g4 also is kind of an idea, which is okay. Yeah, definitely, guys. So we will be ending here, guys, and we will be again continuing tomorrow at 7 p.m., not 8 p.m., 7 p.m. And yes, glad that you all joined us today, and hopefully you all learned something instructive. If you all did, then definitely hit the like button and subscribe. Your suggestions are most welcome in the comment section below, and also on a social, so you can definitely join our Discord and like messages on our chat channels there. And I will see you soon tomorrow at 7 p.m. Thanks a lot for tuning in today, guys. We'll be continuing the same thing tomorrow. And what's the plan for black in this position? Like, yeah, most likely we'll try to regroup your pieces, but just in a much better way. Again, we'll continue with more of this tomorrow, guys. And again, we'll make it a little short, and we'll focus on the more important positions, maybe add some tactics also. And thanks a lot for tuning in today. And hopefully, we'll see you tomorrow too. Uh, until then, have a nice night. Bye bye. Sorry.